What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. Today, it is Monday, the second week of November, on November 8th. I hope you all are having a phenomenal month of November, not playing Christmas music yet until after Thanksgiving. Hopefully, I hope we're all on the same train there. But I am, of course, your host, Ethan Smith, who does the most. And as always, on Mondays, we will be joined by Gary Morgan today, where we actually have a lot to talk about today. Jacob Stallings yesterday was the only one of the three nominees for the Pirates to win the Gold Glove Award. We'll talk a little bit about that. Diego Castillo was selected to the 40-man roster, and some other internal roster moves were made as free agency is officially open. So we'll talk about a lot of stuff that's already happened over the weekend. And Barry Bonds' documentary on E60 came out yesterday, and there was some interesting stuff that came about in it. And also, he was not interviewed in it because he declined to be. So we'll talk about that later in the podcast as well. Thank you all for making me your first listen of the day every single day. I know you guys love having Gary on Mondays, so that's why he's always here. And with that said, we will get into today's episode right now.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast today. Again, Monday, November 8th. As you see, it is a little cold just everywhere in the country because me and Gary are both wearing beanies today. Gary back from jet setting in Florida. He always jokes of me being a jet setter. I am done with my vacations for the year. I am not going anywhere unless it's Pittsburgh or my parents' house. So that will be it for me. But Gary, how are we doing today? Despite, nobody can see where you're from on Twitter because I can't figure out the graphic to get your name on here.
I'm doing good, man. I'm readjusting to Pittsburgh weather, and nature kind of helped with that because it got cold in Florida and warmed up here. So kind of was a pretty easy transition back.
Yeah, and you came to the South at a perfect time where we were having coastal weather and it was 42 degrees and pouring down rain in Savannah on Friday and Saturday. So that was fun. But enough about weather. You didn't come in here for a meteorology podcast. If you wanted one of those, I'll give it to you. I don't know how I would do it, but it'd be pretty fun. I mean, meteorology, before we get into it, is the only job you can be right 50% of the time and still get a very livable salary. So
draft predictions too.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Oh, yeah, of course. And obviously the biggest news that came out yesterday while Sunday Night Football was on and the Tennessee Titans were just ripping apart the Rams, which I did not understand. The Gold Glove announcements came out. The winners came out. The big news came that the St. Louis Cardinals were the first team to have 5 players win the award in one season for the first time in history, stopping Brian Reynolds and Kevin Newman from winning it, even though Brandon Crawford was the winner at shortstop. Jacob Stallings wins the award at the catcher position. Fun stuff to note about him. He did not start catching as a kid until he was around 10 or 11 years old because his backstop on his little league team got hurt. He went back there, and the rest is history. He wins his first Gold Glove of his career. Really just deserved it. I mean, I don't really like putting the no pass balls part into it. It's impressive, but there's plenty of other statistics, fielding percentage, runners thrown out at second base. I mean, runners thrown out at first base too. He did that plenty this year. This is just him. He just deserved this award. I think he was the most deserving of the 3 guys, I believe, that were there for the Pirates. What are your thoughts on Jacob Stallings winning the Gold Glove Award this year?
I mean, this year, first of all, he gave them no choice. I mean, his stats don't lie. There was nobody that touched him. And if this award has any integrity, which, it's always been a question mark a little bit, are you getting the award based on your bat and your glove or just your glove? But, Jake left no doubt. There was nobody else that should have won. He didn't really overcome being looked at on a bad team because he just took all doubt out of the picture. He had a great season, and he deserved to win it. And on Jake personally, man, it's a guy that he has talent, obviously, but he's taking every bit that he has and worked to become the defender that he is.
Mm-hmm.
He took it seriously. It's what he wanted to do, and he did it. You cannot question his ability back there. He is the best defensive catcher in the game, and he deserved it, every bit of it.
Yeah, and then I believe like the biggest statistic that we saw all year that was really the biggest reason why he won this award is it's not only the fact that he was leading catchers in defensive run saves, he was leading all of baseball in that statistic for a major part of the season. Like he was like I could not remember a part of the year where Jacob Stallings was not leading all of baseball in defensive runs saved. And I mean, he wins the award. I do know there was some backlash on Kevin Newman not winning it because he had the best fielding percentage of any shortstop in the National League, all that stuff. And that brings into the question, like you said, do they take your bat into account as well? Brandon Crawford, don't get me wrong, had a phenomenal season. I mean, any of these guys that won this award had a phenomenal year defensively. It's just how it is. But I mean, again, do they take the bat into account is always in question. And I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it also doesn't, considering it's a defensive award and it's supposed to be that way.
I'm sure they do take the bat into account, at least historically. It's pretty clear they have. But Lindor and Crawford, the two guys that were really competing with Kevin, they kicked his butt in outs above average. So, I mean, if you can make a statistical argument that, yeah, they beat him. So that's an important stat. It's kind of raised in prominence in the last few years. It's hard to argue that Kevin wasn't anywhere near them. So, I mean, he had a great season too. I don't think that this takes anything away from what he's done.
No.
What his stats say, though, is Kevin gets to everything he should get to. And he does well with it when he does get to it. The other guys, they were getting the things that, according to baseball statistic geeks, they had no business touching.
Yeah,
and they ended up turning into an out. So, again, kind of hard to argue there, right? I mean, maybe if he did hit a little bit more, he'd get a little bit more attention. But I think just based on the glove, probably the right decision was made here.
Now, does the now this is a question I was going to pose on Twitter. Does the All Gold Glove National League team beat the Atlanta Braves in a 7-game series?
I don't think so, but
considering it's mostly the Cardinals, and the Cardinals couldn't get past the wild card game.
Yeah, and I don't know that I could put like Harrison Bader, for instance, anywhere in that lineup and replace him. Anyone. I don't know that I would do that. So. No, I don't think so. But
it's just a fun question to think about. I mean, like the AL was a little surprising to me as well. I know, just talking about the Gold Glove in general. Obviously, Salvador Perez is going to win Silver Slugger catchers. If he doesn't, that's going to be the biggest mockery of that award I've ever seen in my entire life. Just because he had a phenomenal season hitting the ball, and he's one of the best defensive catchers in baseball from what I've seen him play. Obviously, I haven't seen the Royals play a ton, but when I do watch them, the two things that stand out, Salvador Perez is a very good hitter, and he's a very good defensive player. And also, I'd love Whit Merrifield as a Pittsburgh Pirate one day, but it will never happen. Because Whit Merrifield, legit, to me, I've always looked at him as this guy, like, he's kind of just like an enigma to me. Like, he's just good, but nobody cares because he's on the Kansas City Royals. And it's like, now being a Pirates fan and being so deep into this team, I wonder if Brian Reynolds, obviously this will come out soon too, if he'll even come close to touching the Silver Slugger award. I know he's a finalist, but I think maybe the lack of home runs will probably kill him, because I know they love to look at that stat too. But I mean, I looked across all their statistics. Who, do you think Silver Slugger wise is beating him out? Because I know he's the main guy there.
If he stays in center field and continues to hit in the 25-ish home runs range, he's always going to be in the conversation.
Yes.
And being in the conversation is more important than getting it 1 year. So I'll take the consistency that he brings to the table and give him a legit shot just about every year to get that kind of accolade.
Yeah, and I mean, he definitely should, hopefully. I mean, of course, 2020 was his only bad year where he didn't hit over 300. But congrats to Jacob Stallings. Of course, if I ever need a defense attorney, I will call you over here at the Locked On Pirates podcast. If they ever try to say I copyrighted something, I'm calling Jacob Stallings, because guess what? He won't let it pass. Anyways, we're going to move on today's episode and let you know that today's episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again, and the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. So moving on today's episode now, that was like the biggest news that came out yesterday. But then, of course, if you all look at the bottom of the screen, if you're on YouTube today, Diego Castillo, the other pickup from the Clay Holmes trade. Yes, I messed up when I tweeted about it and said the Jameson Taillon trade, but we make so many trades with the Yankees, I can't ever get them all together. Was selected to the 40-man roster. Jose Soriano was DFA'd. And then I spelled Castilla down there. So Castilla was acquired in the Clay Holmes trade. So I will fix that real quick. But immediate rash thoughts are what you pretty much saw with this deal. Like, what was the immediate thought that you had with Castillo being selected?
I fully expected it. I mean, he was going to be a minor league free agent if they didn't do something. Makes sense to put him on the 40-man. It's easiest. The other way they could have gone is just to offer him a minor league deal for this year, and perhaps they did, and he didn't want it. But that makes him an automatic possibility to find his way to the majors this year, which, again, I think his bat was kind of doing anyway. Not sure if he'll stick at shortstop. Seems like he can handle it pretty well. He could be realistically your first call up, really. Not unlike Castro last year. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about him. I'm not over the moon acting like he's a future all-star yet, but I'm decently excited about him as a prospect.
Yeah, and I mean, I am as well. And when you look at the overall trade already, you're getting the immediate remnants of the Clay Holmes trade. You've already seen Hoy Park. You see Hoy Park is basically a second baseman. If you stick him at shortstop, he can't play the position defensively. His bat is there every once in a while. So you've already seen that. And you can't make rash decisions because you've only saw him for like a quarter of a season. Diego Castillo comes in, and then you already know, okay, cool, we can see what we can do with him here, see where he fits into the team, all that good stuff. So you're getting an immediate remnants of, if I'm using the right word, I can't think of another word. You're getting immediate feedback on that trade. And from what I've heard from Yankees fans, they love Clay Holmes. Like, apparently he was doing very good for them down the stretch, and they love him. So maybe this is one of those trades where both teams end up being happy. And not to even discount the fact that you still have the Jameson Taillon trade and all the prospects coming from that, like Roenzi Contreras. So we're just building the Yankees farm system over here, it seems like, in Pittsburgh in 2022. I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. I promise. But the other roster moves that came out, and just because it was a lot, I will read it. In addition to, the following players, of course, were removed from the 40-man roster: Chase DeYoung, De Los Santos, Wilmer Difo, Kyle Keller, Connor Overton, Shashawn Shreve, and Shea Spitzbarth. Of course, Shashawn Shreve goes to free agency. And then the following players were reinstated: Stephen Bralt, Blake Cederlin, Dylan Peters, Jose Soriano, Dwayne Underwood, and Bryce Wilson. So that was the moves that the Pirates have made so far. Out of those names that were removed from the 40-man, are any of them surprising?
I'm a little bit taken back by Shea Spitzbarth, only because they named him minor league, or AAA pitcher of the year.
Yeah.
And, he was a Rule 5 pick for them last year. That said, when you really looked at the major league opportunities they allowed him to have, I guess we really shouldn't be that shocked. They treated him like a yo-yo last year. He was just an extra arm. So, no, not really that shocked. I'm also not 100% sure that, 4 or 5 of these guys are going to end up re-signing with the Pirates. So this is pretty typical stuff, general housekeeping that teams do every single year. Part of that list that we talked about that would need messed with a little bit, and I don't think they're done. So
No, they won't be done. I'm fully convinced. And as I've said before, too, do not be surprised if a lot of the moves the Pirates make this offseason are in this month because it's very heir apparent that it looks like we're going to be having a work stoppage on December 2nd. So you're going to be seeing a lot of these teams really try to make their moves now. We've already seen the Reds and the Tigers kind of do it. They made moves like the crack of dawn as soon as this stuff started. And I mean, a lot of people too with the guys who were reinstated to the 40-man roster. Of course, the one that sticks out to me is Stephen Bralt, just because I've heard a lot of comments and people say they've seen enough. I think I've even had you at one point say you've pretty much seen enough of Stephen Bralt to the point of, do you bring him back? I mean, it's one of those things where you just have so many options with young pitchers, and you're looking to add veteran pitching in free agency, I'd assume that where does he fit in if you do bring him back? Do you make him a bullpen arm like Shad Cool? And how does that pan out for you? That's really like there's a lot of questions around Stephen Brault right now and what his role would be if he does stay.
Everybody's been trying to make Stephen Brault a bullpen guy since he started here.
Mm-hmm.
And he always winds his way back into the starting rotation. And for the most part, he always does well until he gets hurt. That's really the story. He gets hurt too much. And while I'm not going to sit here and say that's his fault, I can't depend on him. I can't put him there and say, yeah, this guy's going to come out suddenly and find a way to give me 180 innings. I don't see it happening. So, yeah, I would probably move on from him, but I can't say 100% that's what the Pirates are going to do. We'll find out shortly, though.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, it's going to be one of those things where by next Monday, I'm sure the Pirates would have made like 20, I'm not saying 20 moves. That's a little drastic, but I wouldn't expect the Pirates to be sitting there doing absolutely nothing from today until next Monday. And on Friday, me and Adam Bittner over there at the Post did talk a little bit about the Greg Allen acquisition. I like the acquisition a lot. They also acquired Eric Hanhold. That is basically all of the moves they have made. Greg Allen, I mean, you look at what he's done across his career in a small sample size. I believe he was around a 275 average. Kind of again, just another dart throw that that they're doing. I mean, you can't fault him for it. Look at Ben Gamble; he was a dart throw. He's likely your starting left fielder in 2022. And Greg Allen, to me, he could play all three outfield positions. Maybe he gives you some versatility out there next year in 2022.
Oh, I think we can complain if we want to. I mean, you're picking up a 29-year-old cast-off from the Yankees in the middle of a rebuild where you've got definitive holes to fill, and you're going to pair him up with Ben Gamel, who was DFA'd last year, and Anthony Alford, who was DFA'd a couple years ago. It kind of gets old. It really does. You'd like to see them go out and get an established major league player, but this is the game they want to play. And at some point, they're going to be right, and some points they're going to be wrong. If this guy hits, great. But he has no future here. He's 29 years old.
No. Be careful with the established outfielder thing, Gary. You're going to have my comments all saying Andrew McCutchen for the next 5 days now. We talked about that too, and I wanted to get your input on it. And I thought that I kind of put it into perspective of, do you really want to see McCutchen leave twice? Does anybody in the Pittsburgh really want to see this man come back and then just get traded at the deadline when the team is 35 and 55? No.
He's a whole hell of a lot closer to the end than the beginning.
Yeah.
If I brought Kutch back, I'd bring him back on a 2-year deal, hoping that he only planned on playing 2 more years, and try to ride it out with him as best you can, get through it. He's not coming back. He hasn't expressed any interest in it. The Pirates haven't expressed any interest in it. It's just not going to happen. That said, I think a lot of fans are in protection mode right now, and they want to diminish what he did while he was here in an effort to make themselves feel better that he's not going to come back now. And I just don't think we need to see him as anything better or anything different than a player that really shined during a good period of Pirates baseball and fell off the table for a little while and then got moved for, hey, the next star,
Brian
which
Reynolds.
doesn't happen as often as you'd hope. So take
No.
it, be happy, and move on.
Yeah, and I mean, I do assume, like as we mentioned before, I do assume they will look into getting a outfielder, some veteran pitching. We would like to see them get a new backup catcher, but we'll see. Because apparently they like Michael Perez. I don't know what they see in Michael Perez because I don't see a damn thing. But you did mention something about Kutch being here and all that good stuff. But before we get into the next and final part of today's podcast, I want to let you guys know that today's episode, of course, is brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar, of course, is the best tasting protein bars on the market. I am still just holding on to these bad boys because I never thought I would like a blueberry muffin and chocolate together, but I love it. They have 9 unique flavors, all very good, all 100% chocolate covered. And if you want to try all 9 flavors, you can get a mixed box where you'll get 18 Built Bars, 2 of each of the 9 unique flavors. They're also very good for you. They have 3 to 5 grams of net sugar and carbs, 130 to 180 calories. And again, all from really good non-artificial stuff. All their chocolate covered bars are made in-house, all that good stuff. Built Bar is absolutely phenomenal. Make sure you go check them out. They are also the official sponsor and protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. So that's also really cool too. I don't know what the U.S. track and field team is up to right now with no Olympics and stuff going on at the current moment. But I'm sure they're probably training and stuff like that. But if you go to BuiltBar.com right now and use the promo code LOCKED15, you can get 15% off of your next order when you invest in the best protein bars on the market. And I like that you brought it up because it was a good segue. Of course, yesterday and before we started today's podcast, there was the Barry Bonds documentary last night, and I liked that what you said is you said people need to remember that Kutch was a good player here and was a light in Pirates baseball. I watched that documentary, and of course, I did not really see most of Barry Bonds' career. I saw kind of the back end when he was in San Francisco, and that was when I was like 6 years old. So I didn't really get to see Barry Bonds that much at all.
Right.
And watching this documentary yesterday, there were some interesting quotes about him. Of course, he won 2 NL MVPs in Pittsburgh. And one of the things that somebody said, I can't remember his exact name, is he said in Pittsburgh, I don't know the truth behind this. This is just what he said in the documentary, is he won 2 NL MVPs in Pittsburgh and was a phenomenal player. But the only thing anybody will ever remember about him is he couldn't throw out Sid Bream at home. That was the only thing. That was, he said, that's how it was, and that's what it felt like. And Barry Bonds, again, he's just kind of always a conversation in baseball. Of course, this upcoming year is his last year on the ballot for the Hall of Fame consideration. And it always kills me, and they said this multiple times yesterday, Barry Bonds is the best player to play in that generation. He's the best player to play in the 90s. Cool. He was a home run guy later in his career. Who knows what he did? But the whole thing with it is his character keeps him out of the Hall of Fame. Let me go ahead and there's a good list of people I could probably name off for you right now that are in the Hall of Fame that if you want to compare their character to Barry Bonds, they probably shouldn't be there either. So what are your I don't know if you probably watched it last night because I know you just got back from Florida, but you know way more about me or Barry Bonds than I do. So what are your initial thoughts on pretty much what I just said?
I mean, there's a lot there. I didn't watch the documentary yet. I will. But there's no denying, really. Barry Bonds was the best player in that era. He's the best player I've seen in my lifetime. So I think Barry Bonds, on his accolades and what he's done in the field, yeah, he's a no-brainer. World Series, probably top 5, 10 all-time player. Great player. The arm thing, yeah, that was a problem. Everybody knew that was a problem. He didn't have the strongest outfield arm. That's nothing new. Sid Bream scoring on that play, I think there was some other factors involved there. First of all, believing that he actually scored, which a lot of Pirates fans probably don't. I know Mike LaValliere still professes he didn't score. So if we had the video that we have today, I don't know that doesn't get reversed, but so be it. The Braves have suffered enough, right?
Yeah,
Up until this year. As far as Barry goes, he's not in because he cheated. That's really it. He cheated. He got caught, cheated. And that provides cover for not voting for somebody that people would have plugged their nose and voted for. But he gets no friends in the media because he was, well, an ass to them. To be honest with you, he was. There's more people that will celebrate Jim Leyland yelling at him in spring training than will celebrate any home run he ever hit as a Pirate. And it's a shame. If you watched him play, he was incredible. Here, too. Really was. When he got to San Francisco, it was a whole other animal. When he played here in Pittsburgh, yeah, he was fast. He was strong. He could hit for average. He could hit for power. He had the speed. He could steal as many bases as he felt like stealing. Defensively, he got to everything. He was outstanding. Arm, yeah, was a little light, but that was really the only tool he didn't have in the chest. And the guy was the best player on that team. Diehards like me that have been around a long time will tell you that he let them down in the playoffs, and he did. At the plate, he didn't hit, not nearly the way he should have. Actually, Andrew McCutchen kind of followed suit with that.
Yes, he did.
So, yeah, his legacy here is great player, but
yeah. Trust me, on the front of Andrew McCutchen and Barry Bonds and McCutchen following suit, I'm sure if some of you know, like my older listeners, he was 0 for 22 in 91, I believe, in the 91 playoffs against the Braves. And then I like to always bring up the fact that Andrew McCutchen in Game 4 against the St. Louis Cardinals in 2013 had the bases loaded and popped up into the infield to lose Game 4. And I looked at my mom after he did that, and I said, we're not winning Game 5. But it's in Pittsburgh. We're not winning Game 5. I said, we're not. It's the same thing with me. Like, the playoffs is a whole different story. Like, you can just kind of sense it. Like, the Clippers were up 3-1 way back when they played the Rockets when they had Lob City. They lost after being up by 21 with 13 minutes left in the game. And I looked at my friend when I was watching it and said, we lost that game. We're not winning Game 7. We lost by 27 points. I mean, it's just one of those things. And it's always crazy to me that with these big players like a Bonds and a McCutchen is the playoffs come and then the stage gets amplified and all of a sudden they just hit a dud. And it's the worst timing for it to happen. And one of my biggest questions that I always ask is because, I mean, I'm a Pirates fan who's only seen this team win 2 playoff games, or, well, how many playoff? 4 playoff, or 3 playoff games in my entire life, and only seen them be in the playoffs 3 times. How different is Pirates history if they beat the Braves in that game? If Sid Bream is called out, how different is Pirates baseball from then until what we know of it now?
Instead of hearing people say that they have done nothing in 40 years, you'd hear they did nothing in 30 years. That's the difference. That's really it. Game changed right after that. That was the last opportunity. That's why that hurt so bad. Everybody knew the game was changing. That was, I think, a year after the Yankees signed that big TV deal. Everything was changing in the game of baseball. Free agency was coming to the forefront. It had always been around, like since for decades, but that's when it really, really started to hurt. And yeah, I mean, that's why that hurt so bad too. We knew that team was going to start falling apart right after that.
And it did, realistically, from what I know. Barry Bonds, of course, left to go follow in the footsteps of his dad to go to San Francisco. Bobby Bonilla would end up leaving, so Andy Van Slyke was just left by himself because I believe they paid Andy Van Slyke and let Bonilla and Bonds left. I don't want to say they let them go, but they left. And I think it was kind of just like when you look back on it and the stories I've read, you kind of knew that Bonds was done after 92 in Pittsburgh. he was going to San Francisco no matter what, I think, just because his dad wanted him to be there and he wanted to follow in his footsteps. But then, I mean,
And his
again,
godfather, and
yeah, I was gonna say
yes,
it was a allegiance down there in San Francisco for him to go there. And I mean, now outside of like all that stuff, I mean, I'm sure the rest of the team just eventually started to fall apart. And then, of course, I know obviously because I grew up with it that 92 to 2013, the Pirates literally did not have a winning record, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
I'm not.
93.
I was gonna say I'm not like being drastic. I'm actually think I was gonna say I think I'm right on that one. But again, that's why me and Gary are always here to tell you the importance of the prospects in this system, but not only right now, but to continuously keep building on it. Like keep building on it because if you want to have build a consistent baseball team in Pittsburgh, just based on how we know Major League Baseball is as of today, you have to have that kind of pool of prospects coming through all the time. Has to be a revolving door. Has to be like a steel worker. They got to go to work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. That needs to be your prospects. They need to just be there all the time, making it work. And that's how it's going to have to work unless December 2nd and the CBA meetings change some things. And then we'll see. I mean, at that point, that's really where it's at. But Gary, although your Twitter's not plugged, you can plug it and everything. But where can everybody find your work after they listen to this podcast today?
Yeah, you can find everything I write at InsideTheBucksBasement.com. And my podcast, Pirates Fan Forum, is on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. You can find that anywhere you find good podcasts, just like this one. And on Twitter, GaryMO2007. Give me a shout. Love talking
Of
ball.
course. Awesome. And of course, you guys also know that I am Ethan Smith, your host that does the most. You can follow me on Twitter right there at the bottom of the screen at MVP_Ethan. You can find this podcast on Twitter, or you can find this podcast on Twitter if you want to. You can find it on Spotify, Odyssey, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, pretty much any big platform. You can find all of Gary's stuff over there as well, all that good stuff. Thank you for another awesome Gary Morgan Monday. Sir, I appreciate it. Everyone that came in and listened, thank you so much for making us our first listen of the day. And I hope you all have a phenomenal Monday, and I will see you again tomorrow.